Hi, everybody. I'm Toby Shifsky. I'm the Vice President of Real Estate Education at Kaplan Real Estate Education, and you are here at our Real Experts webinar. Our guest today is none other than Amy Hansen. Hi, Amy.
Hello, Toby.
If you don't know,
another crystal ball.
another crystal ball, right? So if you guys don't know, Amy comes back every year at this time and helps us kind of set the stage for what we think is going to happen for the remainder of this year. And we did it last year. We've done it the year before. We were spot on a couple things, and we missed wildly on the interest rate deal. Nobody ever saw that coming.
No.
Yeah, never ever saw it. So the good news is,
my face this morning from last year's crystal ball, but I'm recovering.
Yeah, fully recovered. The good news is we are dialed in for this year. And just so if you guys don't know, Amy is a practitioner. So Amy is committed to constantly building a knowledge of the industry and sharing it with others with over 29 years of experience. Amy, you've brokered over 700 million in transactions. That's a lot of experience. And Amy excels in the facets of real estate, navigating complexities with ease and demonstrating unparalleled skill in the Twin Cities.
Oh, thank you.
And I love that. I also love the fact that Amy has been teaching with Kaplan for how many years, Amy?
Probably 16 or 17. Yeah. And I'm a content writer that long too.
And if you guys haven't seen it, Amy does continuing education courses for us live online. I think they're presented in about 36 states now. Our CE is. Having been involved in the arena for the past 13 years, Amy continues to share her experience and expertise with thousands of people, and unwavering belief in the industry. And you're going to need that this year, right? I mean, lawsuits and interest rates and all these things. You're going to need kind of an unwavering belief in the industry, because I think we see the light at the end of the tunnel, but we're going to find out in today's webinar. So, Amy, thank you for being here. Thank you for being a part of our Real Experts today.
Oh, you are welcome. I'm excited about it every year.
All right, let's do this. I am going to stop this, and I'm going to pull straight on for us. Let's get started. Here's what I think. I have a question, though, first for everybody. And I just want to reiterate this, guys, we're going to go pretty fast. We're only going to be here for about 30 minutes. And I know this could go on for hours, but we're going to move quickly and give you everything you need. If you need to drop off the webinar for any reason, we do mail this out to you and you can view it later. You can pass it around to people, whatever you'd like to do. But I got a question, and it's a poll question. So everybody knows that if you're here and you're listening to it live, you get to participate in the polls. Polls are anonymous. Nobody sees your name next to the poll, but I always share the results of the poll. So I'm going to go ahead and start our first poll question, everybody. And it's really just to know who's on the call. We get a lot of people, Amy, and I know you know it, who are still sitting in licensing, but we also get a fair amount of people who have got 10 plus years experience. So here we go, everybody. Play along. If you're on your phone, you might need to swap to a different, just swipe your screen and find this poll question. It's up there for you. Who's in the audience today, right? How long have you had your real estate license? Click the most appropriate answer for you. Currently taking classes at Kaplan, right? Less than 3 years, 3 to 5 years, right? 5 to 10 years, or 10 plus years. Go ahead and click which one you're in, and I promise you, share the results. All right, we're going to give it about 2-3 more seconds. Looks like we got just about everybody participating. Look at this. This is good, actually. We got a pretty balanced field this time. All right, everybody, here we go. I'm going to end it and share the results. So take a look at this. About half of you, 47%, are currently taking classes right now at Kaplan, licensing. Good for you. You are ahead of the game, and you're going to get some insights today. I'm confident of that. Less than 3 years, 13%. These are the people who've been in, like, really since the pandemic, COVID, right? I mean, they got 3 years in, 3 to 5 years, you got 7% of you, 5 to 10 years, 5%, and then 10 plus, kicking it up, 13% of you. You guys who've been in the business a little bit, especially those guys past 10 years, we're going to talk a little bit today about some of the stuff that's happened through history that can kind of give us an indication of where we're going. Love for you guys to share it in the chat. Bring your knowledge to the game here today, too. That's a fair game for everybody. All right, let's do this. I'll pull that poll down, and I'm going to start. How about this, Amy? A little quick review of 2023. what did you see that happened in 2023? Because I'm going to go really quickly to kind of where we think we're at for 2024.
Well, as an industry as a whole, I guess what I saw is kind of a massive slowdown. I mean, there was red lights that came up. Not only, in the mortgage industry, I think was really affected. But buyers just stopped because these interest rates skyrocketed. That was the most memorable thing of 2023 for me.
Yeah, I know we did our crystal ball last year, and we looked into the ball, and it said, it's going to be a tough slog, but it's not going to be bad. And then interest rates just went crazy, and it really did stop just about everything. I think looking back, the good news is it looks like we may have crested that wave. Yeah. Is that what you're seeing? I'm seeing interest rates cresting in like the end of October, early November, and at 8% or so, and dropping down. Is that
now
what
they're
you're saying?
6, just under 7, 6.75, 6.5, somewhere in there.
Right. And you can,
not a bad rate, Toby. I mean, when I got in the business some 30 years ago, they were, the interest rates were extremely high. And I remember when they went down to like 8 and 9%, in the early 1990s. And we were advertising the heck out of that. I mean, it was that was a good rate back then. So honestly, I mean, these rates at 6.5 or whatever, they're not the end of the world.
Right. Right. Well, I think the average over the last 40 years is 7%. When I got in the business, it was at 8.5% back in 1991. And then we all know what happened with the whole mortgage crisis in 2007, 2008. So having interest rates trickling down, and there's a very important meeting happening right now. Maybe the last thing we'll say about interest rates, very important meeting happening right now. The Fed is meeting, and they're talking about, if they're going to keep the short-term interest rates the same, or if they're going to lower those short-term interest rates. Everybody expects them kind of to drop in March. It'll be very interesting to see what kind of direction we get out of the Fed meeting. Look at that. Robert says February 1981, the rates were 19 to 19.25%.
Well, a couple of things. Jasmine says, I think 2023 opened the door a little wider for doing real estate in creative ways. That's for sure. Right.
Absolutely. Owner-held financing. Owner-held financing coming back, right? People selling on contract for deed or purchase money mortgage. Owners saying, why don't I make this 7% interest or 6% interest and secure it with my property I know and love already?
Right. They'll come out of the people with the suitcases of money come out of the woodwork when things, the ones that had suitcases of money before still have the suitcases of money. I'll tell you that. But
there is. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, but prices were much lower, Deborah says. And I looked at an interesting statistic that in July of 2023, okay, so just this past summer, the average monthly payment on a property throughout the country hit the highest level ever of roughly $2,300 a month. So that's a combination of the high home prices, which, Deborah brought up, and the high interest rates. I mean, that is debilitating for a lot of buyers.
Home affordability, right? The whole index. If you guys don't know, there's a home affordability index put out by the National Association of Realtors. I suggest you go look at it, research it. It'll talk about just this: high interest rate, high price, talks about median household income. All these little stats go into this affordability index. And we peaked near the end of last year at the least affordable real estate market since 2010, 2011, which was after the mortgage crisis when everything dipped and dived.
That's when the prices went down, which I don't see happening, by the way.
Well, let's talk about that, because that's one other thing from 2023. Home prices. They didn't fall. They didn't crash. Some areas saw a dip for sure. But overall, across the country, I mean, home prices were up like 2.4 to 3.4%, depending on who you listen to, across the country.
Yep.
And we're going to talk in a little bit. Yeah, and we're going to talk in a little bit about what we think is going to happen in 2024 also, right? Now, the big thing that did happen last year is number of transactions went down. Yep. And so they went down from like 5 million to 4 million, which is once again about 2010, 2011 for the last time we had that few. And some people say, gosh, it was the fewest transaction since 1995, which is like 3.8 million. But there's a little bit of a smoke and mirror on that number. But anyhow, it's one of the lowest number of transactions in a long time. But there were still nearly 4 million transactions.
Right. And I saw, and I think it was from NAR, the volume of home sales year over year from November of 2022 to November of 2023, just a few months ago, was the volume of home sales was down by roughly 7.3%, which is significant.
Yeah, yeah. Right
not
on.
the prices, not the prices. So that means that, agents out there, you had less business.
Yeah, right on. Right. Well, you did. There wasn't no business. It was just less business, right? Yep. All right. So let's do this. I got another poll question because I want us to move quickly into 2024. I think that's really what people are super interested in.
Yeah.
And when we move into 2024, what I want to ask people right now is just an observation for what's happening in your marketplace, right? So I'm going to ask another poll question, and it really is, what is happening with home sales in your area right now? What's your perception of what's happening with home sales in your area right now? Take a second, answer the poll. It's houses are sitting on the market. Nothing's moving. I see signs come up, but nothing's selling. Or houses are selling, but they're taking a little time. They're selling, but they're taking some time. Or, you know what? House comes up, it sells pretty quickly. I mean, I see it 1 week and in a week later or 2 weeks later, the sold signs on it. Or, you know what? Houses are selling not only quickly, but for top dollar in my marketplace. They are going fast and there's multiple offers still, or they're going above asking price. Go ahead and put in the answer that you think fits what's happening in your, and I'm going to share these with everybody. And then if there's a real outlier here, I might ask somebody to kind of say, hey, in the chat where you're from and if you did that. So, all right. We've a home been sitting for 3 years now. Jasmine, I don't know where you're at. That's you might be overpriced.
Either, but
that's not good. We might have to look at that one, Jasmine. All right, here we go. I'm going to end the poll. 3, 2, 1, and I'll share the results. Look at this. So we got houses sitting on the market, 10%. Houses are selling, but taking some time.
That's how I would have answered it.
Okay. Because we're going to talk a little bit later. Do we think it's going to be a buyer's market or a seller's market? And maybe this answer right here gives us some indication. Houses are selling quickly, 16%. And then look at this. It's on the other end of the spectrum from houses are sitting on the market at 10% to they're selling like crazy, like hotcakes, 10%. Very interesting. I'm going to ask this. For those of you who say, gosh, houses are selling like crazy, like I got multiple, could you just chat where you're from in the chat? Atlanta, look at that, overpriced. North Carolina, Florida, Raleigh, Chicago. Whoa, that surprises me. Look at that. Georgia.
Yeah.
Look at that. Jeanette's got some stuff to say there too. Paycheck to paycheck. Yeah, you know what? We're seeing that Southeast as a pretty hot market still. Yeah. I got New Jersey, LA, Charlotte. We got more people thrown in here than the 10% that voted, but I love the participation. Awesome. All right, let's do this. I'm going to stop sharing and we're going to go on. How about this? Are there any other housing stats you want to talk about that we should be aware of right now, Amy, that kind of is going to set up for what we think for this year? Like, do we think home prices are going to go up, down? Do we think sales are going to decline? What about the home values? Is there a demand? What do you think?
Okay, so I just think that's a multifaceted question.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
First of all, to answer as a whole, back to lack of inventory. When you have such a big lack of inventory, house prices usually don't go down.
Right.
And I've always said this, that, things aren't going to go on sale like the Kmart Blue Light Special in real estate. If they do, we're all in trouble. Nobody should wish for that.
No.
But so as a whole, because we have such a lack of housing, I think that prices will continue to increase, and let's hope that's the case. That's my prediction. Okay.
So, and I think you're right on the demand part. The millennials. I know we have a bunch of millennials on here right now. You're a very powerful. You are now the largest demographic in the country, and you also have the largest buying pool available who haven't already purchased. Now, the millennials have been lagging the boomers and the Gen X's generations by about 8% in home ownership. For every stage that they've gone through, from 20 to 30-year-old, from 30 to 40-year-old, 40, they've lagged behind about 8%. Whatever reason, buying is tougher, homes cost more, maybe different lifestyle choices, whatever. But even if you said you're going to get to the 66% home ownership rate that boomers and Gen Xers have, then there still means that there's about 5 million millennials who are yet to purchase, who want to purchase.
I mean, it's a
5
huge
million.
market. I mean, a couple
I mean,
things.
we just talked that we only sold 4 million homes all of last year, and there's
Right.
5 million people just in that group who still want to purchase.
Right. Inventory,
why.
by the way, Michael has a question. Inventory meaning the amount of housing, Amy. Yes, the amount of available houses on the market is what I meant by that.
Yeah, if you're in real estate, the product is the house, right? That's the inventory. So you got to have inventory in order to make a sale.
Back to millennials.
Yes.
As you know, I wrote this millennial class for Kaplan, and you know, it was wildly popular, but there's a different frame of thought with, I mean, many of them have to be convinced that buying a home is a good idea.
Oh yeah.
You know, and history will tell you that it is. Okay. And so using statistics to show those millennials that still buying a home at these rates or whatever, it's still a good idea, but they have to be convinced because they're mobile. They don't want that commitment. Many of them, they're fine with renting, you know. So there's challenges with the millennial sector of our population.
Well, I think that's why they're about 8% behind the other generations. I think it's just always going to be 8%. They might only ever get to 58% home ownership, where the preceding generations are at 66% home ownership. That's millions of units difference. I get that. That's a big thing. You know what? I'm looking here. There's another interesting factor about inventory. And Michael brought it up about not inventory, Rockford Hill to everybody. Airbnb markets has an effect on supply. I don't know anybody else, but seeing large sweeping ordinance changes, zoning changes, restrictions on Airbnb, VRBO, short-term rentals. What are you seeing with that, Amy? How is that going to affect supply in the future, where people, it's not going to be investors?
That are outright, you know, saying no, you can't.
Banning them, right? Yeah.
Yep. Or if you have them, it has to be managed professionally, or, I mean, it just depends. There's so many rules now that are coming into play. And, you know, it's no different than like, you know, prior to the market crash when we were selling real estate and it was like everybody wanted to be a landlord, you know. Well, some of them weren't financially ready to be, you know. Others just didn't, you know, they mismanaged. They were horrible landlords. So I think that what the cities are doing is saying, hey, you know, safety is a concern.
Yes.
You know, just all kinds of different rules that come with Airbnb. I mean, the hotel industry has special licensing, and I mean,
oh, for sure. And so how that affects real estate, I see, is that fewer investors, fewer part-time investors, fewer first-time investors investing in the Airbnb should mean that there's more inventory for typical residential single-family home sales.
True. Now let's talk about this for just a second.
Yeah.
When we talk about, you know, inventory or housing affordability, and we talk about like how long are things staying on the market. I'm in the Twin Cities area, by the way, Minneapolis, St. Paul. Someone asked that, and you know, I think that the market time varies on the price range of the home, the location of the home, just here in the Twin Cities.
Yeah.
And these kind of lower priced homes, like 300, 350-ish, they're not staying on the market long.
Yeah.
That's, you know, and the millennials, many of them, that's their price range with the interest rates where they are today. And that's why they're not lasting long. I mean, that's what we have a serious lack of.
Sure.
You know,
that entry level, essentially, maybe even, you know, entry level and entry level plus, because they've been saving up money for years, right? For down payments and coverage. And so let's do this in the interest of time. Let's talk about 2024. You know, what do we think is going to happen? Do you think we're going to do more housing sales, fewer housing sales? What do you think is going to be the biggest influencer of housing this year?
As compared to last year?
This year, just what do you think it is going to be the biggest influence?
Well, I mean, I think that there will be fewer transactions as a whole than there was last year.
You do? How much do you think that'll be down?
Oh, I don't know. I can tell you this, that, you know, from November to November, the volume decreased by 7.3. So what, maybe 5%? I mean, I'm just throwing something out there. You're putting me on the line here and guess.
Yeah. I want you to put your neck out for our listeners.
But there's no question that the amount of transactions in my mind will go down. And that just has a lot to do with interest rates.
Yeah.
There's a lot of buyers that are just kicked out of the market from when interest rates were at 3. I mean, they can't buy a house with the prices, and with the interest rate, it's just not possible.
So let's talk about interest rates, because I do think it's the biggest mover in our marketplace. I think there's people who want to sell, but they don't want to take on a high interest rate in their next place. I do think there's also a fair amount of cash buyers right now who are buying cash. I mean, I just saw the latest thing from Texas. 42% of all residential homes were purchased with cash. In Texas. I think the national average is up to like 31% right now, paying cash for houses. Houses are still selling. Cash buyers are there.
Well, they don't care about an interest rate. I mean, they're selling their property at top dollar, and then they're going and downsizing or whatever.
Right.
So they don't care about an interest rate. But for all the folks, and we had a big sector of this class that is getting into the business or is newer to the business. And here's my advice for you. You need to market to your parents' sphere, not yours, because the baby boomers, that generation, or me, Gen X's, we have the equity in our home already. We can become a cash buyer. We may want to downsize or whatever. If you don't have a network of those people, I think it's going to be a little bit difficult for you in the upcoming years. So you got to change your marketing of who you're getting out there in front of, right?
Yeah. Well, but that's it, right? If interest rates are high, who's your buyer? And it's people with cash. And who's their seller? Well, here's a thing, though. I think we just talk a little bit about interest rates, because everything I see about interest rates right now is we have crested the high water mark back in October, November of last year, 2023. We are ticking down. There is a Fed meeting right now. I don't think they're raising rates. Everything's gonna and there's a spread between the rate and what they offer to people that's traditionally very high in uncertainty. As it becomes more certain, that rate will shrink that gap, which will continue to bring interest rates down. Do you think there's a magic mark that we reach this year in interest rates that actually opens the floodgates at all for deals? Is there a mark?
I'm gonna say 5%, below 6.
Below 6. So you get into the 5. I think that's where I'm at too. If we get below 5%, it's beat the band. Here's one thing though, you can get in the 5s right now. You can buy down with points.
And this is another thing that they're saying from a seller's perspective, that, along with all kinds of other things that are going on in the industry. But what you may see more of this year, especially for sellers that want to sell their house, is that they're making concessions on buy downs, closing costs, things like that for the buyer. And they may have to do that.
Yeah, right on. Well, that's how you put a deal together, right? There's adjustable rates out there with a 3-2-1 buy down, a 5-1 arm. There's a lot of other products that are starting to make a little more sense right now, but really the key is if the Fed drops the interest rate, is going to move the needle fastest. And right now it's slowly, organically shrinking that yield spread we talked about. But just about every single prognosticator in the industry, from the National Association of Realtors to the Mortgage Bankers Association, believes that rates are going to continue to fall gently throughout 2024. Here's what I think it's going to do for me is 2023 started off pretty good, low inventory, but pretty good sales. And then interest rates went up and stuff just tightened and slowed. I think I see
people that left the business, and here's the other thing. If you've been around, stick with it, guys. I mean, I went through the crash. You've got to stick with it. You got to change your own lifestyle first. But this is, historically, the real estate market is a bell curve. I mean, it goes like this. And if you look at, and we're just, it will change. It will come back.
For sure.
Well,
so, and I see it. I see, for me, I think 2024 is going to be 2023 in reverse. So where 2023 started with decent interest rates and decent sales, and then tightened because interest rates went up, 2024 is going to start here and slowly go back down, where actually it's going to increase and speed up the marketplace. I do think we're going to finish 2024 in in a really good spot. In fact, what I can tell.
I would agree with that. And I think that there is a social responsibility of our country to make sure that the rates are something that's reasonable because people need housing, right? So I think that will be taken into consideration. I get it. I understand inflation and everything, but
yeah. Well, and there's another big event happening in this year, 2024, this fall, known as the presidential election. And in an election year, historically, what we see rates dip in an election year because it's a big mover of the economy, right? With house sales. Think of where our economy's at right now, and the house sales transactions are as low as they've been for decades. And what happens is every incumbent president, I don't care if you're Republican, I don't care if you're Democrat, I don't care if you're independent, whatever, they all pull the levers as much as they can to get those interest rates down so that the spice must flow, right? They want the juice for the economy.
Yes, they do. And there are some great comments here. I mean,
yeah,
the interest rates are strangling the middle class. I agree. Hey, how about Karen's comment? Besides interest rates and STR rentals, what do you think about the recent lawsuits, buyer commissions, etc.? How will those affect things?
Let's jump into that because I'll just maybe put a little bow on where we were. I see interest rates dropping. As interest rates drop, it loosens up sellers who are stuck in their home right now. The golden handcuffs, don't want to get rid of the low mortgage. It allows them to move. It allows a more affordable housing. I don't think the house prices are going to drop a whole lot.
I don't either.
So.
That's also my prediction. Yep.
Yeah, most of the big associations are predicting 4 or 5% increase in home values. But let's talk about the lawsuit, because I do think that comes into play in this industry. That might even be an opportunity for some people. So if not everybody's aware, you should be. There was a class action lawsuit against the National Association of Realtors and 2 large national brokerages, and went to jury, federal jury, and the verdict was you lose to the tune of $1.8 billion for an antitrust violation. And it really all centered around commissions, and it's centered around commissions where the listing agent is negotiating the commission at the time of listing the house. It seems legitimate. Yeah, hey, you're going to pay me, my brokerage, this much money if I successfully do according to the terms and conditions of the agreement, sell the house. But in that, the National Association of Realtors requires that the listing agent also negotiate a buyer broker compensation for the buyer's agent at the time of listing. That's where all the rub is. And what the verdict said was, wait a second, you can't be negotiating the buyer broker compensation at the time of listing. That's an antitrust thing. That they have to negotiate their commission with the seller if they're going to get paid. Not you, the listing agent. In fact, what they thought is, at least to where it sits today, is people were injured. Listers, the people who sold their home were injured because they're sellers, because they've overpaid. Because why would they pay a buying agent to come in and beat them up on their house and price and everything like this? Well, it's because the listing agent required it as a part of being a member of the association, and how it works with the local multiple listing services and how they want to display commissions. So there's a change coming. Even though they may appeal or they may settle, there's a change coming, and there's class action lawsuits all over the place. Just so everybody knows, there's been class action lawsuits in real estate before. When I first got into the business, there was a class action lawsuit, and the real estate firm lost, and that's when it actually created buyer broker agency back in 1991, 92. Yep. Amy, you would probably remember that was once again a Minnesota firm, but. But what happened was everybody said, "Oh, this is how we got to do it now." Well, okay, this is how we do it, and essentially that's what we're going to probably see here. What do you think about what's going to be the shakeout of that commission lawsuit? How do you see it playing out, Amy?
I think that, and again, this is just me saying this, right? I think that the way that things are offered, the language will be changed somewhat. In other words, rather than saying it will be a buyer broker commission that might be offered in the MLS, because let's face it, the MLS is an advertising vehicle for the seller to get their home sold. Okay. Sure. And there's some cost that's involved with putting your house in the MLS. And now that we have broker reciprocity, that means it goes on to Zillow, it goes on to Realtor, it goes on to every website. Okay. So and the buyer's agents and the buyers see it as a result of that. And that costs money, right? But what I think that, will happen is that we'll have a change of language or verbiage on that, stating what is the seller's concession that is being offered.
Sure.
Perhaps, or a buyer's agent may have to put it right into the contract stating, this price includes a commission for the buyer representative of X% or X dollars, whatever it is. It can be a flat fee. So it might be going into the contract on behalf of the buyer that it's being paid, just like the closing cost would be paid on behalf of a buyer, right, by a seller. So languages will change on how that's put together.
Well,
But
I think it changes.
How to value yourself as a buyer's agent.
Well, I think that's the key.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sorry for just jumping in, but I'm all excited about this because I actually see that same thing you say, that you're going to need to understand as a buyer's agent that MLSs will be moving away from
unilateral offer of compensation.
Yeah, right. Yep. Unilateral offer of compensation to buyer's broker. You're going to have to secure your commission on your own. You
better have it in the contract. I mean, it's going to change the way that buyer's agents operate. It's going to change the way that you think about yourself as someone in this industry. Mm-hmm. It's going to change a lot of things, and change is good, right? Yeah. But you got to be prepared for it, Toby.
Well, for sure, right? So I think about the way it's done right now. If you're not all clear on it, if I'm a buyer agent representative, right? Buyer broker agent, I'm representing a buyer. Right now, the conversation is, all right, you want to buy a house? Great. I'll help you. We'll view some homes, and we'll make sure the price is right. We'll negotiate a good price and get the terms.
Putting any cash out of your pocket. It's being paid by a
yeah. Well, how much does that cost? The buyer says, and my response is, oh no, don't worry about it. It's already included in the commission on the listing, so you don't have to pay me anything.
So that's now your conversations are going to change.
Oh, for sure.
Here's how it costs. Here's how
Well, that conversation is what the whole antitrust lawsuit was about too, is, oh, don't worry about it. You don't have to pay me anything. That's part of what's wrong, because in the end, that buyer is going to have to pay the buyer broker one way or another. And either you're, as a buyer broker agent, you're going to need to secure your commission with that buyer. And you better understand all the ways you can do that, from an employment agreement, buyer representation agreement, legally binding them to you to pay a commission if they buy a house. If it's exclusive right to represent, then no matter what they buy, they're going to pay you. And then you're going to have that conversation with them about, well, how do I pay you? Well, when do I pay you? I only have this much money down, which gets to what you said earlier, Amy, which is, how are you going to be able to ask for the seller to pay the buyer broker fee, professional fee, in the purchase agreement?
Well, first of all, you'd have to have a contract for it with the buyer.
Well, there you go.
Make sure you get it. I mean, we have listed homes for years and years and years, and you wouldn't have listed a home ever without meeting with the seller, having a contract for your compensation before you put a sign in the yard. But for some reason, we've been carting buyers around, and doing without a contract for our compensation. Jeanette says a great thing. I think buyers will look at offering less to compensate paying a buyer's broker. Now, I'm not discouraging people that are new to the business, because I was new to the business once too. Okay. Sure. But I'm not anymore, Toby. And the problem with the unilateral offer of compensation is that, somebody that had been in the business for a week, right, was getting paid the same as someone that has been in the business for 30 plus years, like me. Sure. Right. And so to get to Jeanette's comment here, they may look at offering less, but you will have to say, I'm sorry, that doesn't work for me, just like you would if you were listing a home.
Sure.
It all depends on your experience and your value that you put to yourself, right?
Well, I think that's the big point. You brought up the key is, as a buyer's agent, you're going to have to be able to demonstrate your value. What am I going to do for this money? What are my services? And then how am I going to charge you for that? I think it's a wonderful opportunity. I think there's a wonderful opportunity for people to focus on being a buyer's agent. I mean, and straight away, what can I do? How do I make myself a professional? How do I drive a value proposition? How do I make sure I secure my professional fee, my compensation? Huge opportunity going forward. I love that. I think it was a Darius said Washington State just passed a law beginning this year that buyers will have to sign exclusivity contracts with their agents. So that's a buyer representation agreement, right? And it
Yep.
looks like exclusive is good. If you can always get that, can't always be exclusive. You should know that buyer representation agreements, for those of you who have been in the business for a while, you know this, there's like 18 states in the United States that already have
require 'em.
some form of a buyer rep agreement in place. That means 32 states and Guam and, a couple other places don't have it, but it's coming. You're going to need
Well,
to
Washington
understand.
State just added, well, let's make it 19 that require the buyer rep agreement.
Yeah.
Buyer,
So be ready. And I think it's an awesome opportunity. And I think there might be an opportunity for people to distinguish themselves as I only represent buyers and this is my business and here's how I do it. There may be opportunities there in this industry going forward. Let's do this. We are getting really close to the end. I know we've had some great participation in the chats. Thank you, everybody. But let me ask kind of this one last question for you, Amy.
mhm.
In the end, I think you've told us that you think that the number of transactions is going to be down. I think you said that home prices are not going down; they're going to actually go up, right? Is there anything else you see happening in 2024 that people should be aware of from your crystal ball view?
Oh, that's such a, there's so many things. You've
What
got,
would you do? I mean, what would you say to people right now? Here's what you should.
I would get
concentrate on right now.
educated. I would get educated on how the market is changing. Okay.
Yeah.
I would get educated on how contracts are changing throughout the country, how the whole process of real estate is going to be working with MLSs and everything else involved. I would pay attention to and to industry leaders, not only in education. And I'm not only saying this because we're on a Kaplan deal, it's the truth. People need education because they don't keep up on it like we do.
Right.
Okay. I would talk to mentors that have been around for a long time, that have been through the bell curves and the changes, and I would stick with it. But you are definitely going to have to change your easy peasy, easy peasy breezy
Yeah.
getting business, because now the market is changing, and your advertising, someone said don't devalue the industry on social media. I couldn't agree with that more.
Yeah.
The professionalism, the level of raising your bar, so to speak, in this industry has to be brought up, and I would focus 100% on that and your professionalism, because there are people that are aware
Yeah.
that we've had lawsuits. There are attorneys that are watching us. There's licensing authorities that are watching us. There's all kinds of people that are looking for us to raise the bar.
Yeah. Right on. Agreed. Here's my final thoughts, everybody. 2024 is fraught with opportunity, challenges for sure, but opportunity. Make yourself an expert on financing, understand the financing process, understand where the money's coming from, understand your sellers and the cash that they have. Amy brought up a great point. You should be farming and talking to people. If you are a millennial, you should be talking to people our age, Gen X and boomers, because we got the cash and we're ready to move if the right opportunity comes along. So understand the money part of this deal. Understand the representation. There will be representation change throughout this year.
Which is a good thing. It's a good thing, Toby.
For
These
sure.
lawsuits come up because someone's mad, okay?
Yeah.
And lack of transparency has brought them, and we can blame ourselves for that.
For sure, right? So here's an opportunity to get in at the point of change within an industry. So if you're fresh in or you're thinking about it and you're still sitting in licensing classes, this is a great time to get into the business, because you can sit and prepare all of 2024, get educated, find those mentors, come to classes, take Amy's CE courses. That gets you smart quickly, right? Find designation courses that give you the smarts that you need in order to compete. Right
Here's
off the bat.
thing for the people that are newer in this business, okay, to encourage you. When we have new people that come into the business that are being educated on what's happening now, okay, and that's all they know, they can very well end up being industry leaders because they're not seasoned by something that was in the past, right? I, as a broker, value new agents that way because that's all they know is
Right.
what's now and moving forward.
They
They're
don't
not
have to unlearn to learn. And
Exactly.
this was going to be my point. For those of you guys that have been in the business 10 plus years, you've already reinvented yourself in this industry.
Yep.
Time to do it again.
So many times.
Reinvent yourself because I can tell you what I've heard for the last 2 months at all the different events, conferences, everything is, you know what? 2024 is going to be this transition year, but that demand is not going away and interest rates continue to tick down. 2025 is setting up as a boomer of a year. So get yourself prepared. You know, the good news is those people who've been in the business for a while, you've already trimmed your business back during 2023, right? You should be lean and mean and learning and using all the skills you've got and all the knowledge you've gained to look ahead and say, here's where I need to be by mid-year 2024. Here's what I need to be doing by the end of the year so that I can kill it in 2025.
And I just put my name in the comments there on how I'm known on social media for people to follow me, like on Facebook or whatever. Toby, I hope that's okay. It's too late because I already.
You're out. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah. But if you want to follow me, anyone, you know, because often what happens when we have something like this, and I'm happy to talk with agents that, you know, might be coming into the business about, you know, some goals they should set or whatever. And there's all kinds of things that Kaplan, but we're here to help. I mean, that's why I'm involved with Kaplan outside of being a real estate broker, is to help these people. Right?
Amy, you have been awesome. Everybody, here's what I got for you. One last thing. You may have seen it. Jamie Cash has been putting in the chat that Kaplan's community, we have a community forum where this conversation can continue. We have expert moderators that come in all the time and give you advice and let you, even the participants, to participate in that forum and ask your questions and ask. I've seen people asking people for help in different states. Feel free to go on the forum and use that. That's at community.kaplan.com. Real estate, can't miss it. It's been in the chat a bunch. Everybody, I thank you for your time. This has been Real Expert.
More time. I mean, I could sit here for hours and talk about real estate stuff, but take the real estate continuing ads. Keep your eye out for all kinds of things that Kaplan offers.
Yeah.
I put my name in the chat window there, guys, but it looks like Jamie put up something about where you can get my contact information. I think that's my email, but either way, you can reach out to me and I'll let you know how to reach me.
Very good. Well, I tell you what, I want to say thank you again, everybody. And
you're welcome, everyone. Yeah. Everyone's saying thank you. Whoops, what happened?
Yep. Well, I put up the screen so everybody, there's the community address on there. Some more little tidbits for you. Take care, everybody, and we'll talk to you soon.